Do you think it's possible for somebody like no skill extra to break through?
And so he's like find a category like that where it's really small, but it's still there's a bigger category that it's part of, but you're in this category of one where you're the only person doing that specific thing. And for me, we got from $0 to $10 million just doing the same webinar over verbatim over and over and over. If you want to sell somebody something, you have to control the environment. So you have to move them away from the environment they control and move them to a different environment. That's one of the best ways to increase conversions.
Yeah, that's cool for him. I know the webinar works, but it will work for me,
All your audience, look what you did. Have belief this is actually going to work because it worked for you and it can work for them. If they believe it, then it's not that hard to actually do.
Hi everyone, welcome to this very special episode. So today is a wonderful moment for me because I get to sit down with the person who completely changed the trajectory of my life and my business. When I was 18, I stumbled upon a guy with a ClickFunnels t-shirt talking about how just a single webinar could change everything. And the guy was Russell Brunson. I was so hooked, and fast forward, I have generated over $50 million with his tactic and with his webinars. And now I help an agency and I run a company helping entrepreneurs do exactly that. So thank you so much, Russell, for being here. So nice to have you here. This is, I think, the first French episode that you are doing. So thank you so much. This is an honor. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm doing amazing. And thank you for actually doing what we talk about. Nothing makes me happier than seeing people actually implement it and then they win the awards and they're doing the thing, and you guys are doing it at such a big scale. So thank you for actually applying it, especially in your market, because people tell me a lot well, it works in America but nowhere else, and it's no, this is human psychology. It works everywhere if you understand how it all works. So I love it. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my first question is we have a passion in common. We love so much the one-to-many model. So why today are you still so convinced that webinar work? What does your belief in the one-to-many model come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, when I got started over 20 years ago, I was very shy and introverted. And so the people I knew who were making some money online, they were doing a lot more of it where they might generate a lead on the internet and they call them on the phone. And I was like, that scared me. I was like, I don't want to call people on the phone. That was very intimidating for me. And so I remember I was going to seminars and I was watching people do this at a seminar, right? Where there'd be a room of 50 or 100 people and there'd be someone on stage and they would present and they would sell something and you see people run to the back. And that's the first time I saw that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so back then, 20 years ago, we started doing it. We do one-to-many, but it was on phones. It was through teleseminars before webinars. And so everybody would call in on a phone line and then I couldn't see anybody. I didn't know if people were on there, and I would talk for an hour and then I'd make an offer and I had no idea if anyone's there, and I would look at my bank account, and if sales came through, I was like, yes, we did some sales, but I didn't know, if it was good or not. And then when webinars came out, it was different because it was like, oh, I can actually see people and I can see how many people are there. And I started doing it and it became very successful for us. And it's funny because, whenever, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and there's always things that start working and then people come out and say, oh, it doesn't work anymore. I remember 20 years ago, people were like, email's dead, email will never work again. And now we're here 20 years later, email's still working, and then later, we start talking about funnels, and later people are like, oh, funnels are dead. And, over the last little bit, I've heard a lot of people like, oh, webinars don't work anymore. Nobody shows up to webinars. They don't actually work. I was like, what are you talking about? We had some of our biggest webinars ever this year. They still work if you have the right hook and you get people excited to show up. And I think they work better now than ever because I think more people are scared of calling someone on the phone or, filling out a strategy form and then someone's going to call them on the phone knowing they're going to get sold on the phone. I think more people are scared of that versus going to one-to-many presentation, watching a webinar or a challenge, and getting enough chance to get the value and understand it and learn what they want to teach, and then you sell. It's just a better strategy than trying to get someone on the phone and trying to coordinate schedules and all the chaos. Plus, again, when you're on the phone, you can only sell one person at a time. When I'm one-to-many, I can sell 10 people, 100 people, 1,000, 10,000. Our last webinar had, I think, 8,000 people live on it. And so I did a presentation. I made one offer, and we had over 1,000 people bought the thing from one presentation. And That would take 1,000 one-on-one calls to try to close 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So they still work. They work better than ever. I love it. I'll never stop doing it because it works so great.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you launched like sellingonline.com recently. Like I think this is one of your best funnel ever. Like, could you talk about it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started teaching people about webinars like 10 years ago. Like I made a script called The Perfect Webinar. And then in my Expert Secrets book, I talked about webinars. But I think a lot of people just said, okay, this only works for webinars. And I'm like, no, like you have to understand, like when you sell anything online, like the structure of how we structure a presentation is the same, right? If we're doing a video sales letter, if I'm doing an ad, or if I'm doing, a webinar or a challenge or like whatever it is, it still follows the same selling structure, right? And so we decided to do it at an event. This is, man, 7 or 8 months ago was the first time I did it. I was like, I want to do an event, teaching people how to sell stuff online. And then luckily for me, the domain sellingonline.com was for sale. So I bought that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to sell online. And then, and that's what we do is it's a 3-day event where we teach people like all the strategy behind it, right? Like how do you actually structure the presentation and how do you create an offer that people will actually want, right? It's usually funny, like when someone tries to do tries to do one-to-many, if it doesn't work, at first like, oh, it doesn't work. But it's always like one of a couple of things. Either the offer's no good, in the presentation, they tried to teach too much tactics, not enough strategy, or they don't present the offer correctly, right? It's usually one of those things. And so through this event, I was like, I'm going to show all these things in detail so people understand, so they don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and hopefully they can get there a lot faster to the finish line.
And I remember because during the COVID, I joined one of your program, like Tacoma Club X, and two things like hit me. The first, it was like, do what Russell says, and the second was like, do a webinar a week. And like you said, a lot of people just try 1 or 2 or 3 and are like it's not working for me. And me, the key was really the consistency, and to do it again and again. And like you say, tweak every time, like the webinar. Judy is one of my clients. During now 4 years now, like I've done like it was one of my clients in the agency, and I've done like more than 100 in live. So every Sunday, every Sunday, sometimes there is friends, sometimes there is I don't know, but every Sunday we just show up and everybody.
Do what Russell say.
Yeah, do what Russell say, and everybody, was shocked because there is sometimes some party, there is sometimes some even in the mastermind, in French, this is the same. There is like some mastermind and there is some activity party, etc. And our tribe was like, no, we're just doing the webinar because it's Sunday. So yeah, this is amazing, and I think the consistency do really the difference. Yeah, exactly. A question I have a lot today is, the market is really saturated, or it changed so fast. Do you think it's possible for somebody with no authority and like no skill, etc., to break through? Because we see a lot of this success story, etc., and sometimes people are like, yeah, that's cool for him. That's cool for. I know the webinar works, but it will work for me. This is like this internal fear. And what can you say about this?
I think it's tough because a lot of people, they'll see someone like me or you guys who are doing this, in the online marketing space, right? Which is the most competitive space, probably in the entire internet. That and weight loss are probably the two most competitive. And I think when they try to look at it that way, it's like, that seems too big. But the reality is like the way you succeed with webinars and any marketing for that matter is figuring out like where can you find your niche inside of a bigger market, right? And so I see people right now, it's like, if they look at like, I'm going to teach people how to do a business on the internet, it's really, really hard. But if you come back and say, okay, well, what's a niche I could do? It's like, well, let's just say, for example, let's say you're really good at AI, but you're good at AI and you happen to be a college student. And it's like how college students can use AI to start an online business. Like that market's very, very small. It's not saturated. There might be 1 or 2 people doing that, right? And if that's who you are, it's very small. Or it could be stay-at-home moms who are going to do e-commerce, through funnels. Like that's, again, it's a very small niche. Or let's say you're in the weight loss market, right? So it's like weight loss is so big and so competitive. But if I'm like, I'm going to do weight loss diets where we do single ingredient foods and we intermittent fast, right? You take 2 or 3 things, then all of a sudden like you become unique. Dan Kennedy calls this becoming, what does he call it? It's basically becoming like a category of one where you're the only person in the category. And so he's like, find a category like that where it's really small, but it's still there's a bigger category that it's part of, but you're in this category of one where you're the only person doing that specific thing. It's like when you're a category of one, there's no competition. There's no, and it's easier to get traffic. It's easier for me to target people who are like, if I was going to do weight loss for wrestler, people who wrestled but are now in their 40s, like I'd be the
Mm.
only person teaching that model, and I could dominate because I could target those wrestlers who are in their 40s who want to lose weight. Like it's a very small group, and I could target them, be very inexpensive to buy ads. And so I think that's the biggest thing is just understanding like it's only competitive when you're looking at the market as a whole. When you try to figure out how do I become a category of one, there's no competition. Right now, it's like I can own this entire category. And
Yeah.
it's funny, Dan Kennedy always talks about if you find that category, then you can be like, I'm the number one, the number one coach for wrestlers who are in their 40s who are trying to lose weight in the entire world because you're the only one. But you can like position
For
it
sure.
differently because you're the only one, right? So how do you create a category of one inside of the market? I think that's the secret to be unique and really stand out.
And like you have been doing this 20 years plus, like for you, what have changed during the past 5 years, and how do you see webinars, challenges like the one-to-many model evolve for the next 2, 3, 5 years? Because everything is changing so fast, with AI, with everything. And do you think this model will work for the next 2, 3, 5 years? So yeah, what's your thought about this?
Yeah, it's funny. Like you said, I've been doing it for a long time, and definitely the
Yeah.
market's changing nowadays. It's things are accelerating faster. I don't think it'll ever go away though, right? Because people crave human interaction. So you look at social. I think social will struggle more because there's so many AI influencers popping up. There's things and there's like it's so fast to create content. There's so much more stuff being produced every single day. That's where it gets overwhelming. But on my side, or like my job with the webinar or challenge is to take them out. Like I try to get them like out of this environment where they're doing this all day. I pull them away from the environment where I have their attention separately, right? We used to talk about that a lot where the reason why we started doing seminars 10 years ago, like actual like funnel hacking live in our big events is because behind someone's computer, that gets their, it's their home base. They've got everything that they're comfortable. Like this is their set situation. And so that's the environment that they control. If you want to sell somebody something, you have to control the environment. So you have to move them away from the environment they control and move them to a different environment. That's one of the best ways to increase conversions. So we would do it back in the day where we'd take people from their homes and we'd have them come fly to a live event where now we control the environment situation, right? Where it's like we're able to structure this. The same thing's true with webinar and a challenge, right? Where again, people are on here, they're in their environment, they're comfortable on their phones, and your job is to grab their attention and then pull them off their phones, make them leave and come to an environment that you control even more so, right? And so you're doing it through a webinar or a challenge. For me, if you notice, like when we do our selling online challenge, it's a 3 day challenge, but it's a full 3 day event. So when people register, we tell them like, what you should do is if you work in a company, have everyone come and do this together. Like go to your office and get a TV, or if it's just you should rent an Airbnb. Don't do it at your home. Like you need to get like a different experience, like an immersion experience. And so in a webinar or a challenge or a virtual event, I have now more control over the situation, and then I can sell better. And so I don't think that the over the next 3 to 5 years, the chaos will be happening over there. It's going to be more
Mm.
getting people's attention initially on social to be able to pull them off. But I think when you do that and it breaks them away from this thing, now you have the ability to have this experience with somebody that they're not getting right now, right? Right now they're getting their little 10-second dopamine hits and it's no
Hit. Yeah.
long form. And you pull them away and it's
Yeah.
like now you can actually serve them and help them. And then that's when you build real rapport with people. And I think the people that are willing to double down on one-to-many events, challenges, webinars, live events or virtual events, like that's where you're going to build loyalty with your audience more than anything, because that's what people are craving. They're craving that like interaction and actual time with people. And so I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's just going to get better as social gets more flooded. It's going to be more powerful than ever.
What can be your advice for somebody starting, and there is all this noise online on the social extra, and you say that like the attention is you need to grab this attention, like how do you hook them like you said, and yeah, what can you do today like to grab this little part of this attention to do a one-to-many presentation like.
Yeah, for sure. So what I always talk about, this obviously, but I talk about this concept of hook, story, offer, right? Like we have to throw out a hook to grab someone's attention just long enough I can tell them a story so I can make them an offer. And so again, social is the one that's, the loudest. There's so many things going through. I watch my kids when they're on TikTok and it's like they watch 8,000 videos, in an hour. I'm like, whoa, There's so much like, how do you get someone's attention long enough to do it? And so you can do it. And there's a lot of ways to do it. Obviously, you can do it on Instagram or YouTube or like, different places. But for me, like one of the easiest ways for people to get started is actually not doing it through social, because social, again, you're competing against a lot of other people who are really good at getting hooks right out there. And so I like tell people initially to start is instead of like going, and I'd have people do the same time, like go to social and start doing things. But a lot of times it's actually easier to go and like find somebody who already has an audience, right? In my book, Traffic Secrets, I call this Dream 100, like who already has an audience together. They've already put these people together, and maybe they're on an email list, or they're on a podcast, they're listening to a podcast, or maybe they're on a YouTube channel. Like I'm trying to find where those people are at that have already congregated. And then it's not as hard for me to go and like break into a market, right? Because I don't have to go and like get people that convince them to like me or anything. In fact, instead, I'm using somebody else's relationship with their audience. So a good example, when I launched my first book, I didn't know how to sell it very well. I didn't have a huge list at the time. And so I got my phone out, and on my phone, I opened up the podcast app. And the podcast app has every, Apple, iTunes podcast, every podcast, like there's millions of podcasts, but it ranks them in the top 200 in every category. And I was like, this is amazing. So I went to the business category. I saw the top 200 podcasts. And so I did is I literally, I was launching my book. So I sent a copy of my book to every single person that had a podcast in the top 200. I sent it to every one of them. And what's crazy is almost nobody responded back, but there's one guy, his podcast was in the top 10 at the time. Is the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast, John Lee Dumas. He messaged me back. I was like, this book's amazing. He's like, can I promote your book? I was like, yes. And so he promoted the book. We ended up doing a webinar together to his audience. But it was cool because I didn't have to buy ads. I didn't have to do social media. I just built a connection with him, and he already had a big audience, and he liked my message. And so he came back and he sent emails to his list. I was on the podcast, all promoting like, hey, there's this guy named Russell. You got to meet him. He's talking about this new thing called the funnel. You should come on. And then I was able to do my presentation. So for me, a lot of times I tell people like, sometimes it can be intimidating, like learning how to do content and buying ads and that stuff. Like sometimes the fastest way is like, who already has your audience? And what if you go to those people and you tell them like, hey, I've got a cool message I could share with your audience, right? And then if they love that, then they can put you on. It doesn't cost you any money. If they promote something, you only pay them if the people actually buy something. So there's no risk up front, right? And I think for most people, that's the easiest way to get started. And what most people don't know is when I launched ClickFunnels, people thought I just started buying ads day number one, but we didn't buy our first ad for ClickFunnels for the first 2 years. We were over $10 million in sales before I bought my very first ad. And it was 100% doing what I just told you. I just found people who already had a list, and I messaged them. I'm like, hey, I have this new software called ClickFunnels. I have a webinar that I'm doing that's converting really good. And would you be on the webinar? Would you host a webinar to your list? And so most people, when I first asked, like most of them said, no, no, no. And then one guy was like, sure, I'll do it. So I did the webinar to his list, and it converted really well. And we paid him 40% commission. And after the webinar was done, I sent him a check really quickly because I wanted him to be happy. So I sent him a check for his 40%. And I told him, I said, hey, do you have any friends that are good at doing webinars? Because I have a 2-tier affiliate program. And so I just sent you a big check. If you introduce me to your friends, I'll do the same webinar for them, and they'll get a big check, but then you'll get 10% off of the webinar that they do. And so these guys are like, yes. And so they introduced me to 5 of their friends, and I went and did 5 webinars, right? And then I sent those guys a check for their 40%. I sent this guy his check for the 10% of all theirs. And then I asked all those guys, do you have any friends that would like to do this webinar? I'll pay you 10%. And they did. And I did, I think 80 webinars that way without buying a single ad. Just people telling each other.
There's no snowball effect there. So if you had to start from scratch today, like knowing everything you know, but like no money, no contacts, just your brain with all your amazing information, what would you do? Sorry for the English, step by step.
Okay, if I wanted the easiest way to make the most money the fastest, what I would do is I would find somebody who already had an audience and already had some products, but they weren't doing one-to-many selling yet. They didn't understand the process or the power of it. I'd go to that person. I'd say, hey, you've got a big audience. You've got a podcast, an email list, and you're big on social media, and you've got a product here you're selling, however you're selling it. Can I write a webinar? I will write the webinar. I'll script it. I'll perform it. I'll sell your product, and you're just gonna promote to your list. Because that way I don't have to worry about traffic at all, right? And if I get that person to say yes, then I would create a one-to-many presentation. That person would promote it. I would do the whole presentation. I would sell at the end of it, and then I'd split the money with the person. I'd probably get, I might make 20-30% because I'm the because I'm the salesperson. But then they're the one that brought all the traffic, and it's their offer, and I got to do that thing in the middle. And that would be the way I'd get my teeth, the way I would do it initially, because it would take away all the risk, right? I don't have to risk getting traffic or creating an offer. Like those are the hard parts. I get to create an offer, drive traffic and then do the presentation. So I would take away all the variables that were harder and just focus on just the one-to-many presentation and just do that. And that's I think the fastest way to do it. And then from there, when I started making money, then I could reinvest some of that money back into making my own offer and reinvest it back into driving my own traffic. But the fastest way, and you guys know this, there's very few people in the market that are actively doing this, right? I mean, it seems like there's a lot, but if you look at, like, I like going to authors because most authors, they spend 2 years writing a really good book and they don't know how to sell it, or they sell the book and that's it. And I come to them, I'm like, hey, you've got a book, you got a big following, people read your book. What if we made a course teaching your book and I'll do all the work. You just got to promote it when it's done. And then it's just so simple that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So nice. So you have seen, I don't know how many entrepreneurs like with different level, different experience, etc. Like if you were to coach someone starting from scratch, I think what will be the key, the milestone for 0 to 10K, 10K to 100K extra? Because I know there is different season period extra, and sometimes something is working well for you to hit the 10K, 100K, but to go to 1 million, this is so hard extra. So what can be your advice, to scale step by step to over 1 million, and you scale ClickFunnels, so 100 million a year. This is so impressive. Like what can be, in the journey of the entrepreneur, your advice?
Yeah, great question. And it's cool as I can see because all the words behind you, it's like you've had a chance to go through all those phases, right?
Yeah, the first one, the X, and
and they're different, right? Because that's the thing I didn't understand at first. I thought when I started making money, I was like, I'm a genius. I figured out the skill set, but the skill set to get you to $1 million is different than the skill set to get you to 10, which is different than the skill set to get you 100, right? And so each time you have to like relearn stuff or refigure things out to get to the next level. So typically what happens is the first phase, like 0 to $1 million, right? Even let's start faster, 0 to 10,000. That's like the first one, right? How do you get your first 10 grand? And so with the first 10,000, it's really like, it's just a couple things. Number one is figuring out like, what is the offer you're going to sell? It's got to be an offer, not just that you want to sell, but that the audience actually wants, right? So I know for me, I've launched more offers than probably anyone in the world. And some offers do really good, and some offers are okay, and some offers just bomb, right? But when most entrepreneurs, they get started, they're so scared to put out any offers that that's what takes them the most time is they're like, what if nobody buys this? I'm nervous. And they don't do anything, right? The better way is like putting out a lot of offers, seeing like, what does the market actually want? Like, not what do I want to sell, but what does the market actually want to buy from me? And so I might try different offers. As soon as you figure out the offer, so like the what, I call that the what, like what is it you're going to sell? And number two is then how are you going to sell that, right? Am I selling that through a webinar, through a challenge? And so usually that first just getting off the ground is figure out like what is that I'm selling? And then how am I going to sell it? And the third question is who am I going to sell it to? So who's the person that's going to buy it? What do they want to buy? And how can I sell it? And so that's the part that takes the longest. I always tell people the hardest part about business is going from 0 to like your first dollar. Because going from $1 to $1 million is actually, in my mind, is actually easier, right?
Yeah,
because you've already got the hard, you figured out those other pieces. So again, first step is like, who is your dream client? Who's the person you want to sell to? What do they actually want? And then how can you sell? So the way I usually look at this, I think about like, who's the person I'm going to serve is usually it's you like 5 years ago, right? Who are you 5 years ago when you were trying to learn whatever it is you're good at? If you're good at weight loss or the stock market or business, whatever, 5 years ago, when you were trying to learn, like, that's who you're trying to sell to, right? That's your dream client is you 5 years ago. So that's who. Number two is like, what do they actually want? And this is where a lot of people get stuck because they try to sell what they want. And it's like, no, like, what does your audience actually want? And so for me, a lot of times it's going back and asking them. Like I tell people, like, figure out who your dream customers are, figure out where those people are at, like what Facebook groups are they in, and go in there and just like ask questions. Like, what are you guys looking for? Like, what would help you get unstuck? And like find out what they actually want, right? And actually figure out like, oh, they're looking for information. Like a good example, when we launched ClickFunnels, we launched the software first, right? And it's like, okay, people have the software. And then a lot of people weren't having success. I was like, what do you guys need? And they didn't understand like how to actually build a funnel. And so that's when I wrote my very first book, .com Secrets. I'm like, hey, let me explain what a funnel is. Like the audience told me this is what they wanted. So I went and created that and then I gave it to them, right? And then after they read the book, then people were like, oh, I can make funnels. And they started building funnels. But the next thing they got stuck is like, none of our funnels are working. Like, nobody's buying stuff on them. And like, we can't figure out how to like tell our story in a way that gets people to buy it. I was like, oh, there's an idea. I should make my next book, which was Expert Secrets, which taught them how to like tell their story, right? So the audience tells you what they're looking for. And so as soon as you figure those things out, like again, who do you want to serve? What are you going to create? You find out what they want, and then it's like, and then how are you going to sell it? And for most people, 9 times out of 10, I recommend almost everyone to start with doing a webinar because I think it's the easiest, it's the fastest to test. I like challenges, but challenges are like 3 or 5 days.
In the beginning is too much energy. Yeah, webinar is so simple, you can test. And if you fail, you just have to do it like the next week and change something and tweak extra.
This is and you're only wasting 90 minutes versus like 3 days or 5 days of your whole life to do it. Exactly. And so usually that's the first phase though, is getting some of the first, like in our coaching program, that's the goal, is to get some of the first 10 grand. And so like, it's all about that. Who are you serving? What is the offer you're creating? And then how we sell it with the webinar. And then we just do that and we go figure it out and we have them try it over and over again until they make their first $10,000. And that point, it's like, okay, now we've got proof of concept. People are going to want this. Now we're going from 10 to a million, right? And typically that gap, again, as you guys know, it's actually easier because you've already figured out the hard parts, which is what do people want? Who am I selling to? And so for me, it's like going from 0 to a million is all about just getting more eyeballs on the thing you're selling. And this is what we talked about earlier that you guys did, but most people don't do, which is I tell people do a webinar every single week. Like for me, when we launched ClickFunnels, I was like, we figured out the offer, we figured out who it was for, we figured out how to sell it through webinar. Now I just got to do that webinar as often as possible. And so every Thursday night I had a webinar, and then I started doing them like, sometimes I do 2 a week, sometimes I did 3 a week, sometimes my record is one day I did 3 in one day because I had 3 different people promoted a webinar, and that was exhausting. I was just doing webinars like crazy, and for me, we got from 0 to $10 million just doing the same webinar over, like verbatim, over and over and over and over and over again, right? Because that's really the skill set, is just like getting more people. So you're marketing, which is getting people showing up, and then you're selling, and it's just marketing and sales, and that's in my mind how you get a business to $1 million, right? And then this is where us entrepreneurs get in trouble. So about $1 million mark is where we just get good at marketing, selling. So we keep doing marketing, selling, get more and more customers. And usually what we're really bad at, most entrepreneurs are really bad at operations, right? Which is you start getting so many customers, and then like who's servicing the customers? They got to hire employees and staff. And that's when a lot of businesses start collapsing. I see people all the time that win a Comedy Club award, and then like 6 months later, they're broke again. I'm like, what happened? They're like, I don't know, my whole business has exploded. And usually because it's operations, like we're not good at operations traditionally. And so usually at that point, it's like, I need to hire somebody who can figure out how to structure things, how to make sure customer support, the coaching program's good and the customer support's working, and hiring the new people and making sure that, all those operational things is typically what it takes to get from like 1 million to 10. Because that's the phase where it's like us entrepreneurs will implode. And it's like the structure is what keeps things so you can scale. Because eventually what happens is, especially if you're really good at marketing and sales, is you just get so many customers that your infrastructure can't handle it. And that's when it collapses. And so the infrastructure is the next phase. I'm curious for you, was it similar when you got past 1 million? Did you have to focus on?
Yeah, for sure. Because we love marketing, and so we're just doing the webinar extra. But we delegate the other department of the company, and we like we are like, okay, we need just to give more attention on the training side, on the customer service extra, and after you need to hire extra. And in the beginning, you don't know how to do it, so this is brand new for you. You need to learn. We did a lot of mistakes too. This is really the hard part to create this is a good question. Like, how do you create a team? With how to be a good leader and have a great team who can pass every season, because sometimes there is so much. I know you have been like through like some difficult time extra, and I think your team is one of your biggest assets, and you have so much like operational power. You can do whatever project extra. What can be your advice about this?
Yeah, a team is the key, and it's hard, especially for entrepreneurs, to start building a team, because what normally happens, right, is that when you first launch the business, you have to become good at all the things, because it's just you or maybe 1 or 2 people, right? Where it's like, I have to learn how to create a product and drive traffic and write copy and sell. And so you get really good at all the different things, right? And then what typically happens when you start hiring a team, there's no one like you, right? There's no one's gonna be able to get at all the things. And so you try to hire someone, at least for me, I was trying to hire someone like me, and like all of them, like, they can't do 1/10 of what I do. Like, they're the worst ever, and it's like very frustrating. And when I realized later, it's just like, okay, for most entrepreneurs, you become like a jack of all trades. You're good at like, let's say there's 7 things you got to be good at. You're good at all. You get pretty good at all of them, right? And we try to hire someone to do all these, and it's just not possible. So instead, what you do is you look at all these different things. Let's say there's 7 things you're doing, and you're like, which one right now is the most annoying for me? Which one causes the most pain, right? And so if it could be like this one right here. It's like, okay, this one, like I don't like doing customers. I'm doing my own customer support. I hate that. It's like, okay, then what your job then is the entrepreneur is like, then you're gonna replace somebody to do that. And you're gonna find somebody, like let's say you're level like, let's say you're level 7 on all of these. You're pretty good at all of these, right? You're gonna find someone who's level 10 at just this one thing. And then that gets taken off your plate. And then you have someone who's level 10 at that thing, right? And so they're taking care of that one. And then you find the next piece. And it's like, hey, who's someone who's, I'm a 6 or 7 at this skill set. How do I find someone who's a 10, but they just do that one, right? And so what typically happens is it takes 5 or 6 or 7 people to replace all the things that you're currently doing it as yourself. And that's what's hard. And you get frustrated. You're like, why am I paying this person? I can do that and I can do all their jobs. And it's like, yes, you can. You can do all their jobs at a 7, but that person can do a 10 at just that one job. And they're going to focus on it. They're going to become great at it. And that's what we got to like let them have access to. And so for me, it's like, how do I find the best people possible for all these different roles? I think for most people, the first hire should be someone who's like an operational leader, because the operational person is also typically a person who's good at finding those people, hiring them, training them, building systems, which for most entrepreneurs, that's not our skill set, right? So for me, it's like what I would do is I would hire initially like an operations person, and their job then is to go figure out how to replace you and all these other steps and how to build a system so they can replace you. And at first, when you start doing that, everything will slow down because you know, it's like you get frustrated, you're like, why are we wasting time on this? But it slows down for a minute until everyone gets in place, and then you're able to really skyrocket and grow. Because now I'm in the spot in my business now where there's only like 2 or 3 things that I have. We call it unique ability. Where I have a unique ability that nobody else can do, but everything else somebody else can do, and a lot of them can do it better than me, right? But I have a very unique ability, like me selling one to many, a unique ability. There's no one on my team. I yet to find someone that can beat me at that. So I'm going to do that. Like that's my role. I have to do that, right? Creating content. Like I've got a team, people on my content team, but like I'm able to come up with ideas that are unique that most people aren't. So like that's a unique ability. So I have a couple of unique abilities, and that's the only things I do. And then everything else I try to get somebody else to do at this point, because otherwise it pulls me out of my unique ability. Like every minute I'm doing answering customer support or in a meeting or trying to be an operational leader and figure out how to motivate my team, and like any of those things I spend time in, it's costing all the company money because I'm not focused at my unique ability. And so for you guys, I think it's everyone figuring out like what is your unique ability, and then figuring out how do I build a team around it so I can stay in my unique ability where I'm spending 90% of time there. Because what happens is, I'm sure it's happened to you, like as you built the team, you were doing marketing, sales, and you were killing it. Then you had to like start focusing on these people and meetings. Now you're spending 90% of your time just doing operation, and 10% on the thing that actually makes you money. It's like I should be doing 100% on that thing over here. So
yeah, we just watch our day with all this call, you know, and at the end of the day we are just like, what did we did? Like we did nothing, just calls, and it's really hard to after, you know. We have time, rebuy your time actually, like rebuy your time to do what you love, do marketing extra, because when it scales so fast, you need to breathe and focus on this.
I told my operators, when I hired my operators, I told them, I said like, your job is to make sure that the only things I'm doing are these 2 things. If I'm doing anything else, you're failing at your job. Like I should not be in a meeting. I shouldn't be in a, you know, all these things that are not making us money, I should not be in. And so like you knowing if you're successful as an operational leader is I'm doing my unique ability and I have time off. Like if I'm able to do those things, then we're all winning. And so that's how I judge it.
And for you, what's the next phase? You know, 10 to 100, because in the French market, I think we didn't have one guy who hit the 100 million. Not yet, I don't think so. So there is a little few like 10 or 20 hit more than 10 million, but because I think this is more young than US and UK, etc. So more smaller too. So what can be your advice to go on the next scaling phase? You talk about a lot about continuity, lead spin, etc. What's your advice?
It's a great question, you know, and it is really cool, by the way, to see you guys in this smaller country having as much success as you are. And like you said, it's newer, I think, over there. I don't know for sure, but my understanding is it's like all these concepts are so much newer. We're here, it's a lot more established. So it's cool you guys are in the forefront of it, like taking these things out there and having success with it, which is really cool. So for me, you know, and you referenced linchpin. So for those who don't know, linchpin is like our framework for how we scale a company, right? Because there's a lot of ways to make money in a business, right? There's a lot of people teach like just sell really high ticket stuff, and that's great for like making a lot of money really quickly, but it's not a sellable asset, right? Because usually people, they sell high ticket, they take the money, they buy a boat, they buy a house. Like there's no cash flow in the business other than people doing it. And so it's very difficult to sell a business like that or to take it public or do whatever the next phases you want to do, right? And so the businesses that that are sellable, or the businesses that you want to, whatever the next level is, it's usually based on recurring revenue. Like that's what people that are buying businesses are looking for. They want to know that there's guaranteed money coming in. They don't want to know like if the sales team quits, this business disappears overnight, right? And so for us, if you look at our business model, and you obviously know this from the linchpin, but everything we're doing, like we do sell high ticket, we do have events and a lot of things we're always doing, right? But everything is pushing into the one core thing, which is our recurring revenue. Like how do we add more people? How do we add more people, right? If you look at our company, like our KPI, the only thing we're really looking at is how many trials are we getting every single day, right? We have two big initiatives right now that each initiative, the goal of initiative is to be able to add 5,000 trials a month to our trial count, right? And so we're just like, how do we keep adding? Like if we do this, this partnership or this thing, if we get 5,000 new trials a month, cool. Now that increases our MRR, monthly recurring revenue, our ARR, annual revenue, and that's the value of the business, right? Because depending on who's buying it, someone, if you're selling like one-off income, you might get a 1x or 2x multiple if you want to sell. Whereas recurring, depending, you can get anywhere from a 5x, 7x, 20x, 30, like a lot more. And so that becomes the focus point after you've made enough money where you're like, I'm good. Then the focal point becomes like, how do I start building something that's got enterprise value where in the future I could sell it, or I could, do something else with, take it public or whatever you want to do. And so that becomes definitely the driving point after the initial making money phase of the business gets done. It's like, okay, now let's build enterprise value of something we actually sell in the future.
So do you think this is the key, or there is other key too to scale to this mark? Because this is so huge, when you tease a goal, it's like you are doing it every year, but for us it's like, okay, we have some some work to do. So do you think like the recurring revenue model is the key, or for you there is other advice or to?
I mean, it all comes down to your goals, I guess, because not everyone's goals are the same. And so I think I would probably, for you specifically, reverse engineer, okay, what is the end goal? Like, I have some friends who like their end goal is they want a lifestyle business, they want to look like this. I have other friends who are like, I have this goal, I'm trying to acquire this or buy this, or there's something they're working towards. And other people, it's like they've like, for me, it was like I kind of hit those things, and then for a couple of years, it's like, what do I do now? And I'm like, well, like I don't know. Like for me, the next level is like, okay, the next thing for me to win, like I'm very competitive, right? Like the next thing to win is like, okay, well, the only way I can win now, because again, we passed, I think you probably know, last year we passed $1 billion in sales. Like we sold $1 billion, great. So now is it $1 billion a year? Is it like, what's the next goal? And I'm like, well, I think it'd be more fun is like, how do we build something enough value where it can go public or can do something where now just the reach of what we've created 10x's or 100x's, it gets way bigger than we've ever thought of, And so that's kind of my goal right now, but it might not be everybody's goal, because it also is a lot of work, and it's a lot of times like you're not pulling money out of the company at this point because we're reinvesting all money back into ads, back into trials, back into things like that, whereas there was an earlier time in my business where it wasn't that. It was like, my wife and I were paying for houses and we're going to do these things. And it's like, we were pulling money out of the business for a long time. So it just kind of depends. There's not like a one size fits for everyone. I think I'd almost more so reverse engineer what you want your life to look like, because depending on that depends on the advice I'd probably give you when all said and done. But I do believe that most versions, the recurring revenue game is great anyway. Same thing, like on the lifestyle, the recurring revenue is great because again, you get 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people paying you monthly. It gives you the ability to like take your foot off the brake for a minute and just be like, okay, now we can enjoy this, as opposed to like the rat race of the game all the time,
Given how intense scaling can be, and in the phase you are right now, how to maintain like your energy, your health, and your focus, like while pushing for such a big goals? Because for us, it's really we try to optimize everything extra, but sometimes when you see I love Tony too when you say compress decade into days, like how you in your day-to-day operation and day-to-day do you compress these decades into day and maintain a good level of energy, etc.?
I think there's two sides of it. So one side of it for me is the health side. And this is interesting because I didn't understand this when I was growing up. I was an athlete, and so I could eat whatever I wanted, but I was working, I was wrestling, lifting weights, so I was always in good shape. And then my senior year in college was when my wrestling career ended, was the same weekend my wife got pregnant with twins. And so I stopped wrestling, she got pregnant with twins, and we both started eating a lot. She was eating for 3, I was trying to keep up with her, and I gained a whole bunch of weight. I went from like 165 pounds to like 240. So I gained a ton of weight. She gained a bunch of weight, but then she had twins and she lost all her weight overnight, and I was still like heavy. And then I was heavy for 8 years, and I didn't know, I was building my business behind my computer, but I didn't know what it felt like. I was just like, I just feels normal. Until 8 years in, I remember just kind of being frustrated with myself. I was like, I need to change. And so I decided to get healthy again. Like, how do I change my eating and my diet and my weight loss? And during that window, over an 8-month period of time, I cut my weight down to like 195 pounds. I was at like, I think they had 11% body fat, and which is great. But the thing that was fascinating to me that I didn't know was when I had lost all that weight and I was eating healthy, I wasn't tired. Like, I didn't realize how tired I was during the day. Like, I'd be tired in the morning. I'd be tired at work. I'd be tired after lunch. I'd be tired when I get home. And so just shifting the way I ate was such a huge thing for me. And that gave me a lot more energy. So I think a lot of people, it's like they don't understand how important their health is to getting a lot of stuff done, like the mental and physical awareness. I still see, people in my office here, like they come in the morning, they're drinking coffee and have the energy, and then they eat lunch and then they have carbs, and they're half asleep afterwards. They're drinking more coffee, wake themselves back up. Like, that's their whole cycle. Where for me, it's like, I wake up in the morning and I work out early. So I try to do ice bathing a lot. So like, it wakes me up without any caffeine. And then I don't eat breakfast in the morning because carbs make you crash. I don't eat breakfast. And then at lunch, I eat food at lunch, but I don't eat carbs during lunch. I eat more protein and fats during lunch. And then after lunch, I don't have a lunch crash. I feel good. And I go home at night, and at night I'll eat carbs and stuff. And it kind of like helps me get tired and I'll fall asleep. But like, just like shifting my day, that's like, I get so many more hours out of the day. And then also whatever I'm doing at the moment, I try to be as present as possible. So one of my friends, he challenged me to do a time test where you, like, every 10 minutes or 5 minutes, you write down what you're doing. And then we had everyone in the office doing it. And most people, when they got done, they're like, this is amazing. Like, I'm only actually working 2 hours a day. The other 6 hours. And for me, I was like, mine was the opposite. I was like, I'm working the entire time. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the difference. Most people working 2 hours a day, where I'm working 8 hours a day. Like, that was the biggest, like, I'm not just, I don't know what people do, but I'm not doing that, right? And so for me, productivity starts on that side, where it's like, it's very much, the health stuff, and like making sure that when I'm here, I'm doing the thing. I'm not doing 5 other things. I'm not at home, and I'm not here. And then when I'm at home, right? Like, I'm not here at the office. Like, I'm at home, I'm present, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm very present there. So that's the one half of the side. And the other half of the side for me is most people nowadays don't think. Like, it's crazy. They don't read, they don't think. They're just in perpetual motion doing stuff. And what I've been trying to do, especially over the last 6-8 months or so, is spending more time with just my brain, like trying to solve a problem. Because what would happen in the past is I would have a stressful day or something stressful I'm trying to figure out, and I go home and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sedate myself with TV or with, just something dumb. And recently what I've been doing is I go home and I'm like, okay, brain, I need you to figure out the answer to this problem, and I'm not going to give you freedom to go, just go watch TV or something. And so I spend more time just like thinking. And it's crazy. I'll sit there thinking for 15 minutes and I'll solve a problem that I've been stressing about for weeks, right? It's things like that. So it's like I'm trying to actively think through things, which my discovery watching most people is they don't. Most people get overwhelmed, they get frustrated, and they try to sedate the pain or the pressure or whatever you want to call it, and they never solve the problem. And then they go in this loop where they're just always never solving the thing. They're just kind of in this struggle loop for weeks, and then months, sometimes years. And for me, it's like, okay, I don't want to ever sedate myself. I don't want to sedate my brain. Like, my brain can figure this out if I don't let it off the hook. So let me sit with it and just be like, I'm going to sit here and we're just going to sit on the couch. I'm just going to think until we figure it out, right? And all of a sudden your brain's like, oh, here's the answer. You're like, oh, that took me 15 minutes. Like, we had something the other day where it was, again, a big problem. The question was like, where's things going in the future? Like, the next 2 years from now, like, What does ClickFunnels need to look like? What are people going to want to build funnels in 2 years? Is AI going to be different? Like, and so like I had all this stress about like, how do we solve this? And I was like, I got 2 years to figure this out before it's too late. And that night I went home and my wife had left for something. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit on the couch. I'm just gonna sit here until I figure out the answer. And I thought I was gonna be there for like 3 or 4 hours, just like thinking and, and taking notes. I sat down and within 15 minutes, all of a sudden the idea just showed up. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I call my friends and call everyone. I'm like, oh, and then I tell them and they're like, where did that come up from? I'm like, I just sat there for 15 minutes and the idea came. I think most people aren't thinking enough. So I think there's the health side, the thinking side, and between those, it gives you the ability to be insanely productive. You get so much more done in such a shorter period of time, and you're able to find the answers faster, not stuck in these procrastination loops for weeks and months. You're able to get to the answer a lot quicker.
Yeah, a question for you is like, I know the past last year have been like challenging for you on, on personal or with your friend Dave or with your company, etc. Like, how did you navigate this season? And like, I feel like you come back more stronger than ever. So yeah, it's so inspiring. Sorry. So yeah, what can be your advice? Because the journey is really a marathon, and you need to show up every day, to be consistent. And when you're such an inspiration to continue your mission. I know you had like a big proposition, a big check for ClickFunnels. You didn't take it. Sorry. So yeah, what can be your advice for all these entrepreneurs who sometimes feel like, is it worthy? Like, do I need to push? Like, do I need to go on the world? Like, yeah.
It's interesting because I've been doing this business for a long time. Like, I was in college when I started, right? I'm 45 now. So I've been doing this for 20, 23, 24 years. The first 13 years was me trying to figure this out. And then 10 years ago, we launched ClickFunnels, which, has been a rapid growth, right? Just a lot of, it's a lot. And I think it's, there's just like anything, there's times of ups and downs. And times where things seem really fun and exciting, and times where things just seem hard and miserable, where you don't want to wake up, right? And as like the last 2 or 3 years has been specifically hard for me. And I think for a while it was interesting. I think this happens to a lot of people. I assume, maybe not, maybe it's just me, but I think for a while there, I actually like forgot who I was, like I got in my own head of just like, oh, was this thing a fluke, or was this, whatever, or maybe I'm not good enough anymore, or, other people, like, I don't know, you get in this weird thing. And so for me, it's like, I kind of forgot who I was for a while. And that's a weird spot to be in. It's hard because then you're just like, it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where then it's like, because of that, like you're more scared to talk, you're more scared to share things, and then like people think you're not showing up. And then, in this market, very quickly you lose attention if you're not out front of it. And so for me, like it was, like I said, it was hard for a while. And then honestly, it was me getting around other people who were on fire. I think sometimes in our lives, we're the fire, and like, we have all this energy and people come around us and we light them up, right? There's other times where whatever happened, you get pulled away from the fire and your flame starts dim, getting more and more dim. And what a lot of us want to do during that time, at least I want to do, is I want to isolate so that it feels painful. So I want to isolate, and then it gets more dim and more dim. And for me, it literally was, I had a couple of good people, but a really good example was Andy Elliott. Some people see Andy Elliott online. I'm not sure if he's in the French market or not, but in America, he's very aggressive, and a lot of people don't like him at all. He does crazy things, but he's got a lot of energy and excitement. And I was like, I need more of that in my life. And so I messaged him. We talked on the phone, and he invited me to come out to his office. And so think about this, like he's over here, this huge, he's an inferno of fire. And I'm a little flame over here who's struggling right now. And I came back, and when you bring a little spark, a little flame into a fire, what happens? It lights back on fire again. And I had this chance to go back there and spend a day with him and his team. And like in that process, like I remembered who I was. And it's funny because it's kind of cheesy. It's like the premise of every Disney movie, right? Like if you watch Lion King, like Simba loses his way, and then his father helps him remember who he is, and he goes back and he becomes the king. But that's how it felt. It was like the same story for me. It's like I'd been something and I'd like kind of forgotten that, and then coming back and remembering who I am and who I was, like, and re-stepping into that. And I think for a lot of people, if they're in that spot in their life right now where it's like they're struggling, it's like, okay, don't isolate. Like, don't be the spark over here they're gonna putter out and die. Like, go, like, surround yourself with other people that are on fire to bring you back, and try to remember like, who you are. Like, you are here on earth I believe God put you here for a reason. He prepared you to help serve a specific group of people. And like, that is your calling. That is your mission. That's why you were born. Like, you were born for a time just like this, a situation just like this. And when you remember that, you remember who you are, then it gets fun again. Then the energy comes back. Then it becomes easy. It's not like, I gotta get out of bed today. Now it's like, all right, we're going to war. Like, I'm ready to go and have some fun. Like, it just changes the energy on stuff. So, but I think that, those ups and downs happen in everybody's lives. And it's just realizing that you're not alone in it. Like, it happens for everybody. And yeah, so that's kind of how I was able to kind of come out of some of those things and get back to where I am right now. I feel amazing. ClickFunnels is growing right now. Like, so many good things are happening on the backside of that. So yeah.
So yeah, that can be your, like, if someone like listening is on the edge, right now, like scared, unsure, like, but with a dream, what will you say to them, like to find these people? Like, what can be your advice?
Yeah. I think for your audience, like, they should be looking at you. You're on fire. Like, look at what you're doing. Like, you're so like, you are the inferno right now. So for them, they should be plugging into you and getting close to you. Like, if you're doing events or like it's being in proximity with people who are doing the stuff you want to do, right? And what's cool about online now is it used to be like you'd have to go move to live by that person. But nowadays you can plug in and watch the webinars, listen to their podcasts, like just plugging into the energy of people that are doing what you want to do. And eventually that stuff starts wearing off, like starts rubbing off on you, right? And so that's a big part. I think number two, what I believe, and I know you've heard me say this before, but I'm a big believer that like every single human being who comes to this earth, like it says in the scriptures, many are called, but few are chosen. So I believe everybody's been called, right? And you've been called to serve a group of people. And usually who that person is whoever you were 5 years ago. Like, you've been given talents, you've been given trials, you've been given things you've gone through in life. So you have the skill set to serve another group of people. That's what entrepreneurship's all about, right? And so when you understand that, it's like, okay, these things I went through, it shouldn't be embarrassing. Like, these are things that I went through to teach me something so that someone else who's in my same shoes, I can now help them navigate that and guide them through that process. And I can help and serve them, and I can change their life. And I think for me, it's like, if you believe that God actually called you to help somebody, at least for me, that gets me up in the morning, gets me fired up. It's like, I'm not just doing this to like make money. I'm not just doing this for some dumb reason. Like, I'm doing this specifically because I feel called. I feel like this is something bigger than me. Therefore, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do my best. And it just changes the paradigm and the perspective in your head. I think when you start looking at it from that way and then aligning yourselves with people like you who are on fire, who are doing stuff, that's going to get them on fire as well and get them excited about the future for themselves.
I think you're the best to it to creating a movement, and we're trying on the French market, and everybody is trying to create a movement, like much like you did with ClickFunnels. What are the key elements for you that transform a business into a movement and like to scale to 100 million and plus?
I like this one a lot because I think having a business, selling a product is great, but a movement is how you change people's lives, right? So they look similar from the outside. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, you're selling a product. It's like, a product's in there, but I'm creating a movement. So if you look at any movement, I wrote about this a lot in Expert Secrets, but if you look at any movement, there's a couple of pieces that they all have, right? These are like religious movements, political movements, like any big movement throughout time, great businesses, they always have a couple core elements. So one of them is there's always a person who is the attractive character, right? People don't plug into just to companies or brands, they plug into other humans, right? So that's number one. Like, if you want to create a movement, like, you have to be the leader of that movement. You have to be willing to step up and be like, I'm the leader, this is what I do, right? And as a leader, there's a lot of stuff like you're literally like, I don't know what the elections are like where you guys are at. It's probably less crazy than ours, maybe not, I don't know. But here in America, like when there's the presidential elections, right? Like they're campaigning and they have slogans and mottos and all these kind of things, and they're trying to compete for like to be the president of the country, right? And I think about that when you're the attractive character, you're the person that's trying to start a movement. Like, you're going out into the market and you're saying like, hey, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. Like, if you guys want to follow me, like, come in. Like, you're running for president of your market, right? Like, you're trying to get these people to come to you. So it's like, how do you do that? And so for me, I look a lot at like political campaigns and stuff. Like, what do these guys do? Like, what are the slogans and the sayings? And when we launched ClickFunnels, I wanted to give people an identity, right? That they're going to come to me. So we called all of our people funnel hackers. Like, hey, you're a funnel hacker. This is your identity. This is who you are. And so we bring people towards this, right? And I needed like a campaign slogan. Like, here, what's the slogan that people can, like, that creates a future-based cause that people can be excited for? And so we created a concept called one funnel away, right? And that was like, you're one funnel away. And like, we started talking about this mantra over and over and over again. And people believed and they started coming because they wanted to be part of that, right? We started doing all these kind of things. We did events where we brought people together and they could connect. And so like the movements are like all those type of things, right? It's the messaging, it's the things you're putting out there to get people to come to you. Okay, that's like the number one. Again, there's in the Expert Secret books, there's three things. Number one was the attractive character. Number two is that people, when they join movements because of some future-based cause, right? They're looking for change. They're looking for something different. Dan Kennedy said this really good at Funnel Hacking Live. He said that in any audience, he's like, there's 2/3 of the audience which are okay with the status quo. But he said there's 1/3 of the audience who knows that something's not right. They know that like they're not happy with what's happening, and they're sitting there and they're waiting for the heretic to arrive. That's what he said. They're waiting for the crazy person to arrive and say, this isn't right. He said, when you show up, a third of the people will be like, yes, I want that. And they're going to leave the establishment to follow you on your future-based cause, whatever this thing is, the mission, the change that you're promising them, right? And again, every mass movement has that. And then the third thing that every mass movement has is that they present their audience what we call a new opportunity, right? They're not just selling an improvement or how to fix something, but it's like there's something new, legitimately different that's going to change their life. And so you have those things in there, and like that's how you lead with your company. It brings people to you. They're not just coming for a transaction, but they're coming because they want to be part of this greater movement, this feeling, this energy, this thing that's out there. And when you create that and craft that correctly, that's how you actually create a movement.
Thank you so much. We are already at the end of this episode. If you are like, that was so good. Thank you so much for your time, Russell. Like, if you have like a last advice for all the people like listening to you, and yeah, what could you share? And just the end of it. And
Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and excited to have a chance to share with all your audience. Thank you for that. As far as final words, I would say, I always tell people my job at ClickFunnels is to be the belief cheerleader, to get people to believe it'll actually work. Because I believe it'll work for anybody, but they've got to believe it'll work. And so my last words is for that, your whole audience to look at you guys and look at like the words behind you, the words behind you up there. You're living proof that this works, right? And how many years ago did you first start?
5 years ago. I'm 23, so I was 18, just after high school.
So 5 years, okay, so 5 years, that's crazy. 5 years you started, look at what you were able to do. So you are proof that this works. And I want, like, the most important thing I get is like, I don't want people to be like, oh, that's great for him, he did it. Like, look at that and be like, if he can do it, then I can do it. Like, if you believe that you can actually do it, you can. Because it's not that hard. It's just doing it and going, and like, it's gonna, like, there are skills you have to learn. There's the skills, like, there's stuff that you have to go through to be able to figure it out. But it's not hard. It's just gaining skills. And you can, and like, in 5 or 6 years, what you've accomplished is insane. Most people don't do that entire lifetime, and you were able to do it because you followed the process. I think looking at you, like, I have all your audience, like, look at what you did, have belief that this is actually going to work because it worked for you and it can work for them. And if they believe it, then it's not that hard to actually do. You know what I mean? So just believe it, guys. It works. I promise you.
Thank you so much, Russell. Go to sellingonline.com. The virtual event is insane. You will learn so much with the one-to-many model, with I think the greatest in the world. So thank you so much, Russell, for your time, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks you guys. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.